All right. Hello, people of the internet, people of YouTube, those that are part of the Cringe Crew gaming community Discord, and those that follow Ted and I on Twitch. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And this is not the James Bond movie podcast. This is the CCG film podcast.
I didn't inform Stahlman that I titled it the movie review podcast, so that was
movie review podcast. Okay, yeah,
perfectly scuffed. I love it here so much
already.
Oh man!
And we're doing things differently. Instead of watching a franchise, we are going over a director's filmography, feature-length films, not the short films. Thank fucking God. Because I could only imagine us trying to find some obscure freaking short film that's on 8mm film.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we stuck solely to feature length, and the director we're starting out with is Christopher Nolan.
And we picked Christopher Nolan because of two things. One, we mentioned him enough in the James Bond movie podcast because we didn't realize how much of a big James Bond fan Christopher Nolan was. And also, Christopher Nolan is one of your favorite directors, or is he your favorite?
He's up there. I haven't necessarily organized a list, but it's up there.
Right, and I wouldn't say that I'm unfamiliar with Christopher Nolan, but I know of him. I've seen quite a few of his movies.
Yeah.
But I just never recognized a lot of them besides the Batman movies and Inception, that, stuff like Memento, The Prestige, and Insomnia. I never realized that was Christopher Nolan.
Absolutely.
So therefore, the roles are reversed. We have the Christopher Nolan fan would be Ted, and then we have the filthy casual being me. And everything else is, I think, is back to normal as the counter on there, because I'm pretty sure I'm all the way fucking 20.
I got you 15 so far, but I did spend a lot of time laughing, so...
I think we're definitely going background, and then probably likes and dislikes. There are probably going to be a few spoilers, since it's kind of hard to talk about movies without spoiling shit. And are we actually going to do... I mean, I know we're not really going to do ranking right now, but are we going to eventually rank these the Bond things, or are we just going to say...
I think it's true to form. I think we can rank them. I'm okay with
that. All right.
Okay,
sweet. All right, and like I said, we're going from discography, yeah. Crossing over to freaking Mike's music podcast. Filmography. We are starting off with chronological order. So we got Christopher Nolan's first feature-length film, the 1998 independent neo-noir crime thriller film, Following. All right. It was released in April 24th, 1998 in San Francisco, November 5th, 1999 in the United Kingdom, which is weird because I'm pretty sure Christopher Nolan is British.
It was also definitely filmed in the UK, which it very bizarre to see that trend where he's just, I'm going to make a movie about Britain, in Britain, send it off to the Americans to have it first.
And it had a budget of $6,000 with a box office return of $48,482, making this the the cheapest movie that we've seen, and also the lowest grossing film that we've seen so far.
Look, a return from $6,000, actually making money on a movie
pretty
that costs
damn good,
you $6,000 is impressive.
Yeah. And the fact that it took $6,000 to make this movie is impressive.
It's funny because it was definitely a cheap film, right? There was nothing in terms of special effects. There wasn't any top tier actors, at least not for the time. I mean, to say that a movie spent $6,000, I wouldn't expect it to look this good. It was not perfect by any means, but for only being $6,000, it was pretty solid.
I really would agree on that. As Nolan's, yes, I'm reading off of Wikipedia, debut feature, it was designed to make it to be as inexpensive as possible to make, which makes me think if Christopher Nolan could have gotten away with this being a silent film, it would have been a fucking silent film. Which I have a feeling like back in 99, about 98, 99, that probably would have been tough to do because I don't know if they had silent film stock in 16 millimeter film, which is what this is shot in, still around at that time period. I know like nowadays you could probably find it easily. I know you can find 8 millimeter silent stock really fucking easily, but like, shooting a feature-length film in 8 millimeter film is not like uh practical.
Maybe not ideal.
Yeah, especially since those cameras like shoot for 5 minutes at a time. But yeah, and it actually said that the scenes were heavily rehearsed so that we would take only 1 or 2 film takes since the 16 millimeter film stock was the production's greatest expense. Obviously, this is shot in black and white because black and white film is not only cheaper than regular film stock, which is the reason why Clerks is filmed in black and white. um, but also, it's a lot easier to get the lighting correctly because this uses natural lighting since Christopher Nolan did not have any professional lighting equipment, which when we get to likes and dislikes, I'm going to comment on a couple scenes that have to deal with the natural light. Let's see, and also this film was released on Blu-ray and DVD by the Criterion Collection on December 11th, 2012.
Interesting.
So yeah, and that's kind of a big deal, if the Criterion Collection, releases your film, it has some sort of importance.
Well, and just for it to have been so much longer afterwards, like if it was originally released in '98 and they decided it in 2012, like that's a 14-year gap for them to decide your movie is relevant.
Right?
Impressive.
Okay, the cast. Now, by the way, this is going to be a really unknown cast. I'm only going to go with like the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5, because there's like a bunch of like extras.
Yeah.
But we have Jeremy Theobald as the young man, aka Bill/Daniel Lloyd. Alex Shaw, Jeremy Theobald is known for this movie and this movie only, although he's had a couple bit parts in Tenet and Batman Begins.
Yeah, it was interesting as we were going through like the IMDb of the actors afterward that like so many of them were just Nolan staples. There are 5 or 6 of them that will appear in every movie.
We have Alex Haw as Cobb, Lucy Russell as the blonde. She is about like, I guess like the 3rd most famous person in the movie because like she's in like this TV series The Crown as Lady Mountbatten, although she hasn't really done a heck of a lot. Like, I mean, she's done a lot, but nothing really big. Although she is a female restaurant guest in Batman Begins.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like I didn't recognize her through the movie, but to look at her at the end, like you recognize her picture at the end. So, yeah.
For the spoiler for the policeman, not the therapist. We have Christopher Nolan's uncle, John Nolan, who is known for his role Nick Font in the movie Shabby Tiger. He's probably like the most famous person in this movie.
I'd agree.
Yeah. Also, Wayne Enterprises board member Douglas Fredericks in Batman Begins. And also the Gotham Tonight promotional segments for The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. So obviously he got this role because his nephew is Christopher Nolan.
Certainly saves on that budget of only $6,000.
Right, and I haven't found anything of why anybody else was cast. And also the bald guy is Dick Bradsell, and the only reason why he is notable is because he was a famous bartender, and has been actually considered to be one of the cocktail kings. Actually, the Observer described him as the cocktail king, and the San Francisco Chronicle credited him as single-handedly changing the face of the London cocktail scenes in the 1980s. He is credited for inventing the espresso martini, the bramble, the treacle, the Carol Channing, the Russian spring punch, and the wibble.
I'm just saying, I'd never drink anything called a wibble. But
yeah, I wouldn't either. But I looked up what the bramble is. That actually looks good. I know you're not a gin drinker, but like it's like dry gin, lemon juice, sugar syrup, and creme de mure, which is a blackberry liqueur. It's got like
skip it.
All right.
Yeah,
I know because you don't like gin.
Nope, you lost me at the first ingredient.
But if you replace it with vodka.
I mean, I'm closer to it, but yeah, seems like too many steps. Beer is just one. You open it.
That's true. You're no fucking fun. But
you're absolutely right.
But anyway,
anything else notable, or are we moving to likes and dislikes?
That's what I'm trying to look at, because we haven't been doing this so long that we were actually very prepared, right?
Oh god. No. Yeah, all of my graphics needed to be edited. I needed to go hunt and find for some of them. Yeah, we no, not prepared.
Yeah, that's literally all that I have, except Nolan described the production of film as extreme, even for a low-budget shoot. Probably because they rehearsed the fuck everything. And it has a 81% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that we really care about other people's reviews, but it's just...
I mean, that's pretty significant for a person's first film, like, with a budget of $6,000 to get good reviews. I mean, I think that's impressive.
And it also has won a couple of accolades, including the Tiger Award at the Rotterdam International Film Festival, and the Best First Feature Prize at San Francisco International Film Festival. So that's why it was released in America first. He submitted it to a film festival. Okay.
Brilliant man.
And the following also brought fame to Christopher Nolan, who was just started out in the form of Black and White Award as a Grand Jury Prize nomination at the Slam Dance Film Festival.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which, watching this movie, I can see why, like, you know, a studio would, you know, trust him to make, like, a big budget thing with his first, you know...
Absolutely.
Big budget, you know, film going to be the next one, which is Memento. But anyway, we're going to go into likes and dislikes, since we didn't really have much at the beginning, and this movie's short to begin with. And this podcast, honestly, probably this episode would have been short, but I figured I'd blabble to make it as long as the other things.
So the one thing that was notable for me, I watched, like, if you've seen a Christopher Nolan movie, largely you've seen a lot of them. Like, some of the tropes are like suspenseful, dramatic music and really playing into that well. Mystical characters in the sense that, like, you don't necessarily understand everything. And then I guess the best way to describe it is just not being aware of the plot. It's not always a twist. It's not always nonlinear storytelling, but there's some way that he's hiding a part of the plot from you. To kind of blend likes and dislikes. So the experience of watching this movie was difficult. I think half of the dialogue was not actually within the movie, but it was Stahlman and I going, wait, but did this happen first? Did that happen first? Where is this? If you're paying attention to it, the young man's haircuts and facial lacerations kind of give you, like, an idea as to where in the story each of these things fit. But the overwhelming sense throughout the movie was just kind of asking why. up until the last 5-10 minutes of the movie, you had absolutely no idea why the movie was being told out of order. The like to all of that is to say that like it was really well done. There's a reason that it happens without spoiling anything. Like the end becomes so much more significantly impactful because of the order in which the story was presented to you and not the order that it happened. But even all that being said, where it's like, oh, you get the payoff. I understand why it was non-linear now. Even once you get that big relief moment and it makes sense, then they add another twist to the end of it for you. So that even figuring it out,
one too. There's like 3 or 4 of them that just go wham, 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 wham. You're like,
you lose the discomfort of where am I at in the movie, and then they manage to give you that big oh shit moment a second time, which I just think is incredible.
There's like at least 3 or 4 times that it does that, and then it goes back to like it's really.
It's jumpy. Like I said, while you're in the middle of watching the movie, even when there's pieces that you understand, you just go, okay, but why did they have to tell it in that order? Like, why didn't they just give it to you in a more linear, more compact fashion? But by the end, everything does come to make sense, and you still don't know everything that you're supposed to, which is just incredible.
Yeah, because we were actually because we were putting things together, and then I remember there was one part that I was thinking that I was right about something, but then I was wrong, but I ended up being right anyway.
In just the weirdest fashion. It's really well crafted. The one thing that I'll say about Christopher Nolan's style is that there's always, you learn in the order that he wants you to learn. There's always some suspense, there's always some not knowing, and there's always this sense of I'll understand it better if I go watch it a second time. And even though this film was only an hour and the story really genuinely wasn't that complex, I'd love to go back and watch this one a second time to verify the things that I think I know because of the way that it was written. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that like you can see so much Christopher Nolan in his first stab at this. Like in an hour-long, really cheap, really simple platform, you still get so much Christopher Nolan out of it.
It's mostly the editing style and how the story is being told, as opposed to how it's like visual style as how it's shot. Because this is definitely in 16mm film. You see the film grain. It's in black and white. Natural lighting. It's not something that's particularly as grandiose as a lot of Christopher Nolan movies tend to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the budget has a lot to play into that, but I mean, even as we said it yesterday, like they do a very good job with like they have multiple camera angles, which is surprising for a $6,000 film. They have really good sound, like everything is acted well, which, like you said, is rehearsing a million times.
The only issue I have with the sound is that sometimes the dialogue's a little bit too quiet, but
right, and genuinely that may have been more of a product of the '90s rather than the film itself.
Right.
We mentioned that a bunch of times through Bond. But I think like for it, like there was some shaky camera work that like if you're watching on a big enough screen, you get nauseated. But
because obviously Christopher Nolan probably cheaped out and didn't get fucking tripods.
Well, again, $6,000 budget, like but
needs tripods.
When they said their biggest expense was 16mm film, like
obviously
they
didn't invest in fucking tripods.
Exactly. I for like to sum up my combination of likes and dislikes, there's a bewilderment, there's a sense of discomfort throughout it. But Christopher Nolan does Christopher Nolan things with music, with suspense, with storytelling, with reveals, with like proper dialogue. It's not narration, it's like just a well-crafted movie that you figure it out at the end, and it all really ties together well once you can get past that kind of discomfort.
I mean, the dialogue's great, like especially the dialogue between Cobb and the young man, how they kind of like go back and forth. Like that's something that I almost kind of, it's almost kind of Tarantino-esque for how good the dialogue is. Because that's the one thing that people mainly like talk about Tarantino as like how good his dialogue is. I'd say like the dialogue in this movie is about as good as it, as
Yeah.
like a typical like Tarantino film. One thing that I thought was really good, especially like how they use the natural lighting. There's a shot at the beginning where the young man is in a Dunkin' Donuts, and you see like the Dunkin' Donuts logo on the window. There's no glare on the window,
Yeah.
which with natural lighting, I assume is probably harder than hell to do.
Yeah.
You know?
With minimal edits on cheap stock film, like I mean that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
Pick the right Dunkin' Donuts in the right hour of the day, facing the correct direction to keep your light. Like it was well thought out, like the whole way through.
And on top of that, we also found an Easter egg, which was really weird. Like on the young man's apartment is the Batman logo.
Yeah, foreshadows his own directorial roles. How about it? Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I know that we're not really talking about a whole lot what's going on here. A young man is following people, and then a couple of people find out that he's being followed, that he's following them, and then bad shit happens.
Yeah, they use him in a plot line. Like because it's such a short film, there's not a great way to give you the information without spoiling it. But yeah, essentially that's it.
But yeah, it's definitely like very film noir-esque. So I guess this would technically be like a neo noir film because typically film noir is like 1940s, 1950s, maybe up to 1960s. But this is definitely a good start, and this being like a feature length film for like any director, I mean I would totally be freaking mesmerized. Like granted, like he's done like short films before this, which a lot of directors have, but uh very rarely do you see some like a plot and editing choices this complex in a feature length film, with the exception of maybe Citizen Kane.
It makes me curious to go and watch other directors too. Like Tarantino's been
Well,
beloved off the rip, right? So like
yeah.
it makes me interested to see their early projects and see if you get
Well,
their own
Tarantino's
influences
first
that are
film
recent.
is Reservoir Dogs. He never really did like independent, directing.
Right.
As far as I know that he spent most of his time as like a script writer and like doing stuff behind the seat, as like
Right.
care to get into that.
Tarantino was a bad example, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kevin Smith, he Kevin Smith, basically, if I remember right, I'm not sure if he went to film school or even made short films. He just like watched movies all the time.
Yeah.
It was like, I'll make Clerks.
Yeah.
So, not saying that, you need to do short films beforehand or do independent films before you do like a big box office thing, but like, obviously Nolan really must have perfected his craft with those short films to really go right out the gate with the feature length like this good.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, very, very clear why somebody would give him the opportunity to run that big box office film so early in his career.
With that being said, I'm excited to see Memento. Because I haven't seen that movie in years.
Been a long time.
Same with Insomnia, but like I vaguely remember Insomnia. I don't remember Memento at all. I just remember the name, and I know that I saw
it. You mentioned you had a couple of dislikes, though. If you get something off your list.
Yeah, the dislikes that I had was the dialogue being a bit quiet and also the camera being shaky. And a lot of times, especially like near the beginning where it's like during like the following scenes, no pun intended, like the film, like the camera's just like that.
It's not far off. It's not.
And it's and I'm just like, oh god, I hope the whole film isn't like that. And thank god it's not, although you do get subtle shakiness because no goddamn tripods. I don't know, there might be some tripods, but still. That and also I will say that some of like the pacing with like the plot, even though overall like it checks out and everything, I think there could have been a little bit of like brush up to make it a little bit less confusing. Not saying that it being as confusing as it is now. Of what we got
Right.
is like a bad thing, but like I could picture some people being a little bit off put it, and it could have like done a little bit better for the plot if it was a little bit better. So there's like a scene that looks like comes out of nowhere where the young man's like coughing up freaking like rubber gloves. And then you see the scene of like, later about how like he obtained the rubber gloves down like in his mouth and shit. But
I will agree that like there was some weak stitching of scenes. Like I mentioned earlier, you can kind of tell with the young man's like physical appearance where it's supposed to fit in order. But they don't do a great job of like I would argue that was the best stitch job to be like, oh, that's where that fits in. Like was
right.
the
And
coughing the glove.
to be honest, like a lot of it's mainly at the beginning where you're just like, well, that seems random. Well, that's weird. Well, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
when the confusion of the timeline is still outweighing like what you know about the film, it can be very hard to put scenes in order and to figure out what's going on when.
But like this is definitely a film to watch twice because I think like on second viewing, like it's definitely a movie to really enjoy more on like a second viewing.
Yeah, when you understand what's going on and you can admire the craft, I think you'll get a better appreciation of it.
But that being said, rankings. This is number one.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it have to be? Overall, it was a solid film. It's a relatively like quick watch. I mean, I think the total runtime was 70 minutes. When you get out of the way of the credits and stuff, like you've invested basically an hour.
And it's easy to find. Like it's online streaming. It's on Amazon Prime TV.
I was gonna say we were nice enough to get access to it on a Plex server, but yeah, it's not impossible to find for being such a like cheap, low budget. You'd expect this to be the kind of thing that would be difficult to see.
Right, and it was actually quite easy to find. So,
but yeah, definitely worth the watch. I don't want to put it in a ranking as it's the only one there to let anybody feel dissuaded. Like it is genuinely worth a watch. It's very good.
Yeah. I full-heartedly agree, and I can't wait for like these other movies. And it's gonna be nice to see like something like that's in a different genre. Although there were like I guess genre differences with the Bond films, kinda,
sort of.
It's spy film and Moonraker.
yeah. I think the benefit to this series for us is going to be that we're getting different films. Even if they all have a very Christopher Nolan feel, we're going to watch different movies every time, not just a different storytelling of one character.
That's not saying that in the future we're not going to do like franchises again. We totally were thought about it, but we figured we'd try to take a break on that and then feel things out and then maybe go with like another franchise later on.
Yeah,
hopefully something that's not like 20 movies long.
Yeah, franchises were a little harder to pick from too than sticking to a director and giving ourselves some variety. So hopefully this one's a little easier to palate too.
That being said, I got nothing. Like the movie.
Yeah, I think that about wraps us up then. As always, please be sure to check us out on Twitch. Stahlman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. We watch movies in the Discord on Tuesday evenings. Stahlman usually posts about when we're going to watch them, so keep an eye out for the times if you're interested in future Christopher Nolan films. And with that, I think we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.